Look at tract 14 at the Devil's Backbone project in Howell County, Missouri. Beautiful property, direct frontage on the Mark Twain National Forest on its west side. It's heavily wooded. It's actually got a pond right on the property, and a fairly large pine grove toward the east side as well. So let's take a look at the property here. It's toward the middle of the screen, I guess you'd say. First, we'll zoom in a little bit, and then we'll zoom out as well. But here's the property, tract 14. It is surveyed with the corners staked. It's 5.66 acres in size. The entire west side borders the gravel easement road and the shaded area, which is the Mark Twain National Forest, which is tens of thousands of acres of public land that you can generally use for hunting and camping. And there are trails and creeks and rivers, and it's pretty amazing to have that connected to the property. The property itself, and this is a Google base map, I believe. You can see it's mostly wooded. It's 95% wooded, other than I guess you'd say the pond, of course, a couple trails, and then kind of an open area toward the east side. These trails that you see, all they are old trails. Very common when you have a large property that's been divided that there was a trail system at some point. So just keep in mind that these trails that you see toward the middle and the east side of the property, those are not easements or anything like that. They're just old trails that were used at some point. They're not easements for anybody else to cross your property. The only access easement is the easement road along the west side of the property. So no one else can use these trails other than you, essentially. And if you did want to fence, the sides of your property and fence over those trails, you certainly could if that was something that you wanted to do. We've never had a problem, and we've been involved in a lot of projects that had trails, but certainly you could block those off on your property if you wanted to. One of the coolest things about this one, in addition to the pond, is this large pine grove toward the east side. So if we zoom out a bit, this area is a mixture of hardwood with some pine, and when you got pine in an area, you often see these little pockets of pine groves where it's just pine trees for whatever reason. The soil is just right in a little area, or I guess a condensed area. So when you look at toward the east side and going on to track 13 and then out of the Devil's Backbone project, you've got this large pine grove, dense, thick, tall pine trees, and that does extend onto this tract 14. So you've got quite a bit of pine. The balance of the property is going to be a mixture of hardwoods, some softwoods, including some scattered pine, but you do have that actual pine grove on the property, which is really cool. After the tract has been paid for in full, you could certainly use those pine trees to create a structure. In addition to the other trees on the property, you could sell the timber. I mean, those are all options once the property's been paid for in full. In the meantime, it's not unusual for people to want to remove some timber in order to open up a driveway or a building site. And if that's the case, when you purchase the property, you can contact us, and we can let you know the few simple steps that you can do in order to get written permission to remove a certain number of mature trees if you're doing an improvement like a trail or a driveway. So the property itself is accessed on the west side with the gravel easement road. Doesn't look like there's currently a driveway on the property. Excuse me. Judging by the topography in this area, it really wouldn't be too tough to put in a driveway. Going back all the way to the east side would be the coolest. In fact, if you were to kind of take it easterly, close to that pond, and then come back toward that pine grove, you could link into this existing kind of trail, and then you could potentially do your site over here toward the east side, because I believe when we saw the drone video, this was a nice little cleared site over here on the east side, and you'd be adjacent to that beautiful pine grove as well. Or you could do it by the pond. The setback from the road is, I believe, 100 feet. So I mean, once you're 100 feet back, you can do your build site or campsite, but most people tend to go further into a property like this to get the privacy. The pond itself is really cool. I wonder if we can delete this so we can actually see it. There we go. Oftentimes a smaller pond doesn't show up. on a Google map, but this looks like it was a really well-designed pond. It was holding water. It's holding water in this area, but it was holding water when we did the drone video as well, um, which makes us think that whoever built this pond knew a lot about building ponds, because not only did they structure a nice pond that's still holding water, but they opened it up. They cleared a smaller amount of the timber around the outside, which basically helped to keep the pond from filling up with leaves and pine needles and such. So that pond, even though it was probably built 40 or 50 years ago, still is holding water. It could be cleaned out. It looked like it was more shallow than it probably was originally, but it really wouldn't take much to get a mini excavator in there or whatnot, a shovel, and clean out a couple feet of the stuff on the dirt or whatnot in the pond. Let's switch to a topo map before we zoom out, because that's one of the neatest things about this property. It lays really, really nicely. Actually, we'll have to zoom out a little bit to get some scale on this. Basically, on a topo, when the lines are close, a property is steep. When they're further apart, a property is more level. They're called contour lines, and they indicate the rise and fall of the land. The elevation change between two lines on this map, I believe it's 20 feet. I'm trying to see if I can confirm that. 20, 40. Yeah, 20-foot total elevation change between two lines. So we know that from the easement road, as you go easterly, hard to say with this first line because we don't know. The only other reference line is over here, but from this first line to the second line, that's about a 20-foot rise. Really not too much in that space. And then as we get closer to the middle, the lines get even further apart, and then it almost looks like you've got kind of a knoll where that pine grove is, and that could be the reason for that pine grove is there's a different type of soil on that knoll. Going easterly from there, topo map shows that it's practically flat. And actually, when we did the drone video, it seems to me it did rise up gradually from the road, and then the bulk of this property was either just level or close to level. So I mean, you've got a very, very usable property here. I mean, if we zoom out just a little bit, I know the labels get messy. That's kind of an issue with MapRight. But if you look at any topo map of the Ozarks, there are a lot of ups and downs and hills and hollers and ridges and valleys. I mean, just looking at this area, you can see that. But then going back to the property, this property itself, very usable. I mean, we've sold 20 and 40 acre tracts that didn't have this much, level usable ground. So that's really good to see on tract 14. Topo maps are a good source of seeing the roads in the area. So the National Forest has some roads. Topo maps are not always accurate. No maps are always accurate, but topos especially, we see roads that pop in on the topo that don't exist. This road to the east, for instance, we're told it used to be there in the 50s. It really hasn't existed for decades. But when you're coming to the property, likely what you would do, we'll go back to the Google map, really essentially the only way to get here without going through the National Forest is to come off the county road. The purple line is the easement road, so that begins on the county road here, goes west, and runs along the south side of those tracks, comes up here and splits, goes off to the north, and you would take that then to tract 14. So you do want a truck or an SUV to get to the property. There is a forest road that you can see. It's a numbered forest road that comes just west of the property, but they're very unlikely that there's any trail from the forest road to the property itself. And the Forest Service, although they do have a program in place to give you permits to create trails, not likely they do that in this scenario because you have legal access already to your property with the deeded easement and the road system there. So we won't zoom out too much because you can see that on the Devil's Backbone map on the main page where we go and check out the area. But extremely rare tract to have National Forest frontage, to be that private, to be that level, the bulk of the tract, having the pond, having the pine grove. I mean, this just ticks a lot of boxes for what people are looking for. Extremely private, nice property. So yeah, there you have it. That's tract 14 at the Devil's Backbone. Surveyed property with National Forest frontage. Gorgeous tract. Don't love that view. Let's go back to, that's a little more colorful. There we go. Awesome property. If you have any questions, just let us know.